Hello, hi, welcome to Park Lane Events webinar, the final webinar in March. We've been doing these, I've been doing these webinars since October. Hi Lucy, saying hi already, thank you, do use the chat. So welcome to March's webinar, Park Lane Events. I've got 91 people that have registered for this seminar, so we're just going to wait literally a minute for people to come in. I know that not everyone will obviously come in, but I'll just explain for those that haven't come before how this works. So normally I would have somebody, I'll perhaps have done a recording with somebody as well, but because there's so much to get through, there's lots of different slides, there's lots of different information going on as well. Ben, you say you can't hear. Can other people hear? Oh, no, you can. Okay, that's great. Glad that that you can hear. Brilliant. That would be the worst thing, wouldn't it? Right, so we've got probably about half people in now, so I think, or nearly half, so I think I'll start. So welcome to March's Park Lane Events webinar. This is the last in the series, so I was doing them once a month just to try and keep connected with people as we were going through all of this. And at that point in September, Boris was saying that some of this element was going to be like this for 6 months, so hence this is the last one. There's definitely scope to do more, and I'll talk about that at the end. And talking to the corporates this morning, so I've already done one at 10 o'clock, the same information at 10 o'clock this morning. And some of them would love to do like some sort of focus group with venues as well. So that'll be great to get some insight at the end of this as well. So this is all about conference events, what's going on. Now that we've had those guidelines and we've tried to work our way through what that means. This is being recorded, so this will go on YouTube. I'll send that out tomorrow to everybody that registered. So it doesn't matter if people can't come right now, because I do get that. So hello to anybody watching it back on YouTube, thank you for watching it back. If anybody wants to take any pictures, then please do feel free to share it on social media, and also send them to me as well, because I'm not obviously taking pictures while I'm doing this, and so that would be really helpful as well, so appreciate that. So what I'll do, I'll start sharing the screen now. So if you can see the Park Lane events, oh, let my little mouse going around, the Park Lane events logo, I'm just going to go to chat so that I can see what's going on there, people saying hello. And with the chat, do feel free to change the setting. It's up to every individual to change the setting. At the moment, your setting will be set to panelists, so which is me, only I can see the chat, and that's fine. But if you want other people to see the chat as well, then put then on that drop down bit where it says to panelists and others as well. And that way, somebody mentioned last time, it would have been good to have known what other people were on. So if you want to just do a little hello to everyone, then just as I say, change in the chat, go to panelists. There we go. Nikki, you've done that, brilliant. Follow Nikki's example there that says, and Michael, who was one of the people that said that would be great for people to see. So while I'm just going through this first bit, feel free to say hello to everybody. Look at this, there we go. We've got agents and venues. As I said, I have had 91 people register for this, so people will be watching this back as well. Brilliant. Okay, so let's crack on. Loads to get on with. Lots of things that Park Lane events do, and one of the things that people ask is what exactly is it that I do at Park Lane events? And I started it up, it will be 6 years in April, with a combination of things. One of the things is venue finding. So as you know, as venues and agents yourself, that's very self-explanatory. I have found with some of the corporates that I've been speaking to, not everybody understood everything that I did. So hence why I went through this earlier this morning. Venue consultation for venue sales and marketing strategies. That's how I know some people that are on this today as well, and how I've connected with so many venues. I do get it from the venue side, having worked in venue sales, and that's one of the reasons that I wanted to start these webinars, to keep that connection up, especially while furlough was going on. Networking, so one of the things I said this morning is with some of the clients that I have, it's literally the networking. They might be booking through other agents, they might just want to book on their own, of course, but I was doing fam trips obviously back in the day, perhaps dinners or breakfast were working really well as well. Some of you have hosted them that are on this venue, some of the venues here, so you know exactly where I'm coming from there, so thank you for that. And what I have written is an online training manual, if you like, for salespeople coming back who have been on furlough or have been made redundant, because as we know how overwhelming this has been, and it's an online manual, so they can either just run by that and roll with it, just to help get that focus, motivation, what's the update, things going on, and there is a category where you can have calls with me as well, so that then I'm helping through that, and that you know, holding a hand, if you like, or I've been made redundant myself before, so it's that I get it, you know, and I know how turbulent this has been. So that's what Park Lane events are doing, have been doing, and are doing going forward. And I know with a lot of the people that are on here, some do similar, and that's how we all work well together, isn't it? So this I know that you have, and this is why you're here today, just to have an update here. I do talk quite fast, so do let me know if you need me to slow down a bit. Otherwise I will crack on. So this is, as I said, everything that I went through with the corporates today, and I've got some extra slides in that tell you what the corporate feedback was, and I'd appreciate any interaction from you guys as well about what's going on in your venues or with your clients, so that we're just trying to communicate all of this together. I don't say any company names or anything, which is why the chat's quite useful for if it just says panelist, it's only me that will see it, and I won't read out anybody's name. That was more relevant for the corporates this morning, or as I say, if it's panelists and attendees, then everyone will see what you're saying. So this is the overwhelm that we had, right? So all of the different information, don't worry, I'm not going through all of these little bits, but the overwhelm was all the different ways that that was being communicated of what was going on, and how do we sort of wade our way through all of this, and that's where there's lots of webinars coming on, and this was just really timely with my last webinar to go through this in a little way. Now I know that being venues, some of you are open, some of you are getting ready to open, and agencies, we're all keeping on top of that as well. So what I've done on the top right, I hope this is the right way around that I'm seeing it as Chua, is as to what you are seeing it. On the top right, where you've got the columns, that's one way people like to see it, as they're categorized. And on the top left is the just the list of dates. So they say the same information, it's just presented in different ways. And what I wanted to do was get out of it the conference and events. Where's that element? Because this is where, as we're all appreciate, it's a bit blurred, it's a bit murky, it seems like there's conflicting stuff, and I've worked out actually it's because one minute they're talking about social events, the next minute they're talking conference and meetings and business related activity, and because there's various things that can go on at the same time. So we all know we can work from home, we've got to work from home where possible at the moment, and no earlier than the 8th of March is the next date, which is Monday. Happy International Women's Day, everybody, as well, on Monday. We know the schools are due to return. Now, I have people from overseas on this as well, so I think this is why it's been quite interesting for people to see what's going on over here, of course, for them to see what people are going to travel over to their country, and vice versa. And this is just for England, because as we all are aware, it changes in Scotland and Wales, and this is just England, just to keep it focused somehow at the moment. So Monday the 8th is staggered return for schools. My two girls, they're 13 and 10, primary and secondary school, they are going back on Monday, but it's actually still a staggered return for others. So some people's children are getting tested on Monday to go back like the next day. And so all schools should be back by next Friday, but it is still staggered. So it'll really be the following week where everyone's got that one full week to work with, if you like. They're at school for 3 weeks, and then of course it's the Easter holidays, and I'm putting in the holidays because that does actually have an effect on why they've done some of these dates here, which are not obvious for me because I've got children. I'm like, okay, that makes sense why it's that random date. So for example, the Friday the 25th of March, Easter holidays break up for 2 weeks, and on the 29th of March is when you can have two households mixing outdoors, and that's really so that then families can also get together that are then off. So that's where we are there. People should still continue to minimise travel wherever possible, and should not be staying away from home overnight at this stage. So that's where hotel accommodation, and this is again for sort of personal stays as well. But from the 29th of March, as mentioned, there is an opportunity for some further limited changes as part of step 1, as most schools start to break up for the Easter holidays. So then they return on the 12th of April, which is where that date's obviously come from for step 2. So personally, we should still continue to work from home where we can, but outdoor attractions like drive-in cinemas, where we're just going in our household groups to these things. Outdoor hospitality is going to open, as we know, rooftops, terraces and gardens. So again, this is households only who are able to go to those things, no groups. You know, like you can't have 50 people having a nice party on a roof terrace, for example. It has to be all the individual households. And of course, we still have all the social distancing in place at this time as well. So just update there on the funerals and weddings. The numbers can change a little bit there as we're going along. But the biggest thing for us is that the event pilots begin here in this country. So when they did the pilots over in the summer, they were all ready to go for the 1st of October date, remember that? And they were literally just about to be signed off by the government when the new variant came in, and that's obviously why, as we know, the 1st of October date got pulled at the very last minute, because they just couldn't sign that off with the new variant that had come in. So I think that's the only thing for us all to be aware of. Those event pilots could go well again. There's no reason they won't go well, because we'd already done it the first time, so it's just a couple of tweaks perhaps for that. Because the event pilots will be without social distancing, whereas the event pilots back in the summer were with social distancing. So that's where we are there. And I found this in the small print, and this is the reason that I've done it this way, is because with all the charts and things that the government have sent out, there's so much small print to go through. It's like, well, what does that mean? And actually, when they're at this point in time, there's going to be a report on the 12th of April to be recommending in the international travel will be okay on the 17th of May. And the reason I put that in there is because we might obviously get some leaks in the press before the 17th of May, because that report will be done on that 12th of April. So that I just wanted to put in there as well. And of course, schools return from their Easter break, so it means there won't be big families and children out and about. So then we're on to the 17th of May, and we're starting to get nearer and nearer to our bigger dates, more relevant dates. Still, again, work from home where possible. In the small print, hugging was mentioned, which I love. So I thought we'd all like to know that's actually being thought about. That was my favourite part, I think, of the whole thing. Indoor hospitality with table service to eat and drink. So again, we know some of this, and the remaining outdoor entertainment. But again, this is still social distancing. So with conference and events, you can have groups for that are social distancing, but the groups cannot be any larger than the legal limits, and that is where these 1,000 up to 4,000, 10,000 numbers come in. And this will obviously be for the stadiums and big conference centres that would normally take masses of people, but it has to be at 50% reduced capacity or 25%, as you can see there, if it's like a stadium. So that's where they've got, because that will still be very controlled, all the same things that were in place when we were trying to open in the autumn there, with some places will be doing temperature checks, some places you'll have obviously all the guidelines as you're going around, and the anti-vax all over the place, and the guidelines of social distancing in a hotel or venue as well. And again, numbers there for weddings, funerals again, this time they're including bar mitzvahs and christenings for up to 30. So we're getting that social stuff starting back a bit more at this stage, but no more than 30 people. Outdoors will remain, of anything more than 30 any more than 30 will be illegal still. So it's really important that we're all aware of this number capacity at this date in time. And I did just add in there that the 31st of May is half term, so that's when we might see more social things, people trying to book things, but we are still in that those guidelines there. So then the 21st of June, no earlier, we're all aware this is really the big date. We're like, wicked, perhaps now things can start happening, perhaps people will start booking things. And with such a small list on those steps that they've given, whichever one of those you prefer to look at, it's like, great. It's looking like, removing all legal limits, reopening things, removing or limits on weddings and other life events. However, with the small print, when you do look at it on the government website, and that's obviously not what's on the top here, removing all legal limits on social contact, there also says publishing accompanying guidance on how best to reduce the risk of transmission and protect ourselves and loved ones. So we'll probably still have masks, for example. I don't think there will be social distancing, but if they have to put anything in, whether it's a meter or whatever, or numbers or capacities and things, that's where I think that falls under that small print. And again, with the next 2 points as well, that there, measures may be required even after everybody's been offered the vaccine, and depending on their events research program, which is part of that pilot scheme, that might come up with anything. So they're all the small prints with the 21st of June things they've said. And of course the 4 tests, as we know, at each stage, all of these 4 tests have to have been approved, and if any one of those are not, if they don't go ahead, then they can't move on to the next stage. And that's, I think, our biggest concern. We've all seen so much moving on, cancelling and postponing, and so this is to avoid that as much as possible. So then, when I was talking to the corporates this morning, as I was going through the slide, I said to them, can you please put in the chat what month, size, location is your next event inquiry for? For example, if it's September, 50 people in London. That's the information that we're all basically trying to get at the moment. And I know there's lots of this going on, so collaboratively, it's really good. So when I did the last webinar, and I was asking this from venues as well, a lot of venues are saying September, October onwards. So in the chat, please do put now, while I'm just going through this slide, when are you seeing those inquiries coming in? There's been a lot of things in the press as well, with people getting inquiries, obviously for the summertime now as well, and that's where those limits and capacities are really important for us to be aware of, and for other people to be aware of, because even after Easter, May, that May date as well. So brilliant, people are starting to put in the chat the numbers, and again, as I said, you can just put 2 panelists, so that I'll be the only one that sees that, and nobody else will see that if you don't want to. So do put in the chat, when are your inquiries starting to come back for? So I went through, you've got the certificate with the good to go. So I said this to the corporates as well. That was really good information for them. Obviously a lot are aware of it, but this is the national recognised, the government's advisories basically are saying, look, if a venue has got this, we're good to go. So I thought it was good to know that we're good to go logo. That's the main one, which is Visit Britain, and that was the original from the tourism, one of the tourism bodies, sorry. It would help if I knew it was a bit more accurate about that, but that's basically the one that they're recommending. So I had a couple of questions about that as well, so if you have got that, obviously put it everywhere, and I'll be using it on my stuff that I'm sending out as well to help. It's all about educating everybody, isn't it, so the final bookers are aware what's going on. Mentioned already the pilots that start in April, and so subject to those outcome, that will dictate that 21st of June limit there. Social distancing review again, so this is all the stuff that's still going on while all those deadlines are in place. So it was good to be able to let the corporates know this morning this is what's still happening, as well as that international travel report. I think that's going to be a massive game changer, of course, with all the stuff that we're doing. So I've had a few people put in the chat. Let's have a look, go back to the top there. I'm just going to read these out so you can all see where, so you can understand. I won't see people's names and things where you've just sent it to me. So people have been really busy this week, 5 to 10 inquiries a day for June, July, September, October. Put that twice, thanks. Earliest somebody has is June 2021, 30 to 40 delegates. And don't forget, we've got agencies on here as well, so it will be different for a venue than an agent as well. Big uplift from June onwards, from September mainly, a couple of smaller ones from July, October 200 in London, June 30 in London, September onwards for 200 plus. Influx of inquiries for outdoor reward recognition events for July. Typically now all corporates want September, October dates. I agree with that. Big uplift from July. We are pleased as refurb finishes in June. Zach, you've sent that to everybody as well, so that's exciting. August onwards, lots of wedding inquiries from July 21 onwards for 300 plus. So again, this depends on the size of people's venues as well. Or somebody's put, good to go is just a self-certification which you get by ticking boxes on a website. Will you be looking for something a bit more robust for clients, something like the Safe, Clean and Legal Award? So again, all that's on the government website. So it would be have a look at that. Somebody else has said have a small confirmed event for end of May under 6 people outside. So this is it. People are starting to go out a bit more there. Social event inquiries have gone through the roof. So yeah, this is it. I think it depends obviously on the venue. What again, people that have got outdoor space, it's going to be different to people that haven't have to wait for different categories opening as well. So what did the corporates say this morning? Similar things, so that's been really good, and I'll let you read through that, but the majority is September. There are some hospitality, there is some hospitality interest, but mainly autumn, which is no surprise. This is what we were saying in last month's one, but I think what's nice about doing all this sort of stuff we're communicating together is a lot of people are in a similar situation, so you're on trend, as it were. This is what's happening out there, and I think when there are things in the news saying, you know, so-and-so venues or so-and-so agency has got X amount of inquiries or whatever, it's like, well, that's great. There's a lot of, I know there's a lot of like strategy days and conversion days and things like that going on. So I was talking to the corporates about that earlier as well, and we'll talk about contracts and then that in a minute. So then I said to them, I asked them, and do this is on the government website about the vaccination in different countries. So I said, will overseas vaccinations impact your event? And it was either yes, no, or not applicable, or don't answer. Of course, this isn't as relevant for everybody, because as you can see with this on the orange bar, this is the second one along, of course, is us, United Kingdom, and how many people have had the first dose on that orange bar, and the purple or blue, depending on what that looks like on your screen, is the second dose. And we know we were due to all have that first and second dose within those sort of few weeks, which is what it looks like a lot of those other countries are doing. And then it was relaxed, the second one, the gap between the first and second was relaxed so that more people could have that first one. So when you look at it like this, you can see actually more of our country is slightly more protected, but some of those other countries will be perhaps better protected in a shorter time, who knows, but there'll be less people, won't there, be protected. So it is definitely, you can see a different way of doing it, but it does mean that we can go out and do things in our own country perhaps quicker doing it this way. So it kind of starts making sense there as well. So I asked everybody this morning, is that going to make a difference to your whether people are coming in and out? And you can see, 3 people replied, yes, global attendees and speakers for many. So for those events, they'll stick to virtual because that will make a difference. One person said that in her team, yes, it will affect their events, but the managers say by October, everything will be okay. So they don't understand the issues they're facing with contracting space. And I think that's what we're all aware of, but it is just being reminded of. It isn't just that person at the end of the phone. There's all these other people that are influencing this, and some going, no, it'll be fine, no, it'll be fine. But there's actually a lot of other factors that could change the direction of the conference or event, and then also likely to affect our numbers. But manager says, as long as we follow all guidance, then we will continue. And that's up to us, isn't it, to educate any of the events buyers, whether it's social or conference and events, of that guidance, and making sure that they're aware and they can go on next. So then I asked about conference and event exhibitions, a bit of tongue-in-cheek, put my little picture there from when I was at one of the exhibitions, and are you likely to attend an exhibition this year, and if so, which ones? Now likewise, if you're exhibiting or you're going to attend one, do put that in the chat as well. Again, you can just put it to panelists and then I'll see it, or put it to panelists and everyone will see it. We talked about the meeting show, Convex, CHS CHS Birmingham. So Convex is June, as most of you know, 22nd, 23rd at Excel. Meeting show is in the autumn, also at Excel. CHS show has moved to Birmingham, has moved towards the autumn as well, and is in Birmingham. BNC show, there's still in discussions. They're talking about doing forums and things, but there definitely will be back at some point. You've got Square Meal, of course, or Venues and Events show, and I think this is where hybrid's going to be quite good, so that people can still book some one-to-one meetings and have that interaction that way as an offering. So I'll let you know what they said then. So vaccinations did come in, only if staff and that person's family had been vaccinated. So because then they're obviously protecting their family there, and then you can see lots of others were named, meeting show, CHS and BNC as being attended. Hopefully the next BNC, registered for Convex and Venues and Events Live. Unsure if June is too early to risk going with international delegates and suppliers. And I think that's that whole vaccination thing. It's now hand in hand with all of that. And what is going to be put in place for the attendees and the exhibitors that are all coming in and mingling together, and yeah, heading to Convex. So there's still that scope for people to come to the exhibitions, which is what we're all wanting to hear, of course, as well. So I'll just have a quick look at the chat there about exhibitions. There we go. Expecting no international events. Oh, that was until November earliest. And then hybrid is lots of corporates not happy to make their staff still travel. Yeah. LVP are confirmed to exhibit at the meeting show, registered to Convex in June as a visitor, June too early for Convex. So yeah, it's a real mix, I think, from autumn onwards, similar to the conference and events. It's a similar story, isn't it? So again, we're all kind of thinking along the same levels there. Now, we're not talking to the corporates earlier. It's all about obviously looking ahead, contracting events and supporting the industry. And it's been quite tough, to say the least, from a venue and agency point of view, holding on, definitely, with what we've been through. And obviously the corporates, very, very busy with having to switch to virtual, and whatever's in place now is staying in place until perhaps September, October, and that obviously makes perfect sense as well. And I think it's really going to be next year when they're able to plan for next year. Again, no surprise probably there. So I talked about some of the things that would be helpful, some of the things that the venues and hotels are communicating at the moment. So thank you if you've sent anything to me as well. So I did talk about obviously, if a corporate can have as much of their spec and brief and budget and timeline, the better it is for all of us. Having contracts signed, talked about the conversion days, and that people are having conversion days, and anything that was moved over from last year to this year really needs to have their contract signed sooner rather than later. And I also mentioned shared first option and second option. Obviously, a lot of them know what that means, not everybody does. So it was just reminding that, and it would be interesting to know if you have a strategy, if you're a venue, of are you going to do more of the first option? Are you going to continue with your second option strategy? I'm not including Christmas, so a lot of people now over Christmas just say it's shared first option, obviously first come, first served. So I did go over that with them, so I wouldn't be surprised if more venues did put that strategy in place, even if it's just for that last quarter. So feel free to put in the chat if there's anything that you've been advised on, or agree, disagree, or whatever on that, and what your contracts are looking like for terms and conditions as well, because I did mention there are some offers out there where people can cancel. For example, one venue that you can cancel up to 10 days prior to the date of the event for any bookings up to the 31st of December, but their events are up to 30 people. So obviously that's manageable when it's smaller numbers. And then I've got others that have said you can cancel up to a year with no charge, but then that's when they're talking bigger numbers, understandably, and quite similar to the old terms and conditions, and in some of those contexts, in some of those cases. So yeah, I won't read all of those out, but that gives you an idea. I did also mention about the vaccine passports, and if that's something that people are going to consider. And one thing I read on the government website is that these passports will be up to each business, not venue. So when we're talking conference and events, It's not up to the venue, obviously, to say everyone that comes in here must show us some kind of proof, but it is up to the business of that corporation. So if that's what they want to do, that's for them to logistically sort out as well. And then to counteract that, I have seen that the first large ship cruise liner announces vaccine requirement, but of course that is a bit different because you've got the same people on one ship all moving around at the same time. So, and we've all seen in the news, you know, how they were affected last year. So that I completely understand. So I think it just goes to show, depending on the business model, it is going to be a period. Don't be surprised if that is something that happens. But as a government guideline, it's going to be up to businesses themselves when they're doing their events. I'm going to mention, of course, or headline that they're going to pay for their staff vaccinations without taking away, of course, from any of those, you know, the people that need it most. But I did want to say to sort of the corporates, you know, people are trying to do things as best as they can. But actually, if there's any new hotel openings, any Christmas party inquiries that are going on, there's going to be lots of things that's been communicated, from literally new hotel openings to inquiries, and then sustainability. So there's lots of things that people are still trying to do, as well as open up, and things might have changed with sustainability, for example, as everybody's had to have individual perhaps bottles of plastic water, and so things like that. Once social distancing has changed and more relaxed, then sustainability may be more achievable in the way that people were trying to do it before. So lots of things, and I think that's where there's a bit of overwhelm sometimes with all the information. I've had things from St Patrick's Day to Christmas, with offers and things coming in, or to newsworthy things. So I did talk about agents as well, and this is something that with the venues, I'm finding venues and corporates, depending on if they use agents or not, and depends on how much they know about how agencies work anyway, and what has actually been happening behind the scenes with support, for financial support, I should say. So for example, we all know agents work on commission. It's usually around 10%. Obviously, you know, some venues are offering a bit higher, and what has been, conversations have been going on with perhaps 50% of that commission to be paid on receipt of signed contract. That could be quite complicated with some people, and if that doesn't actually go ahead, the agency will obviously need to pay that back to their hotel. But it is an appreciative gesture for hotels and venues, showing that, you know, we realise there's a massive cash flow problem that's been going on with agencies. So there's lots of ideas going around at the moment, which has been great to see. So, and I reiterated that, you know, how it all works with venue finding. You sign the contract, the event takes place, the client pays the invoice, and then it's after that the agencies claim the commission, and then receives that payment for the work completed, which is how it's free to the corporate. What has obviously happened is the event didn't take place, so there was no payment for the agencies, and this is where we're going to find a massive change, I think, in the agent industry, more than even the hotels and corporates, because they have, especially people in limited companies like myself, there haven't been any grants available, for example. It's just the way the government have done it. So there's obviously the difference between self-employed as a sole trader and or self-employed and as a limited company. So any of those grants, when you hear about self-employed, they don't include limited companies. So I'm a limited company, even though there's only one of me. There's loads of agencies out there that are limited companies, and that's why, if they are asking a bit more about how the commission thing's working as a venue, that's probably why they'll be asking. And for me personally, I will be asking about making sure that it is paid that 30 days after. Having everything set up beforehand is really helpful. So having me on the system, on the venue system, and that's kind of the agency side. That's why you're going to see more collaborations over the next 6 months, and yeah, definitely a change in what's going on there. However, obviously had the budget yesterday, woo! And the furlough has been carried on till September, which is great for venues where there are people on furlough, if they've been able to carry that on. But I do understand the frustration of a lot of these things are too late. I know people that were made redundant right at the beginning, and it's so short-sighted when the government obviously had these plans in the first place, but don't get me started on that. And this is the response from the HBAA and the MIA with the support financially for the industry. So obviously all of us that are here today, and this is for, you know, the UK, England in particular. So we're still kind of all in this together, still all trying to push forward. So this is a slide I've used the last 3 months, just because I think each month it might be that we're all feeling somewhere a little bit different. And so are we thriving, surviving, struggling, in crisis? And I think we've probably from this whole year been at different places with this. So I very much like looking at this once a month and go, oh, actually, I think I'm there now. Or yeah, actually, I'm there. I think this is a great, feel free to take a picture if you want to of this. I'll just quickly, if you are going to do that, I'm going to quickly just look at the chat. Here, Zach asked if you get the slides afterwards. It's going to go up on YouTube, so yeah, you can watch it back on YouTube and take any pictures or anything from there. Somebody said they'll be one of the venues have said they'll be vaccinating all their staff as well. People, when I was talking about shared options and contracts and things, thank you for people getting back on this as well. Not working with shared options and not currently. One of their, somebody else has said one venue can put on, one venue can cancel events up to 30 people 10 days prior up to 31st of December free of charge. Oh yeah, I think that's similar to what I put on there as well. So then just finishing up with keeping motivated and keep on time there. Appreciate there's a lot of information that I went through there, and we're all going through this information overload, and so I want to say big thanks for supporting the webinar as well, because it certainly helps me get my head around all of this and swapping stories with what's going on with everybody here. It is about trying to fragment that and take one piece of information at a time so that we can think logically and try and plan. We can at last start planning, which is really good. But also thinking, what does this mean just for me, my family and my work, and just thinking, just going back to ourselves really, and looking after ourselves so that we can then concentrate on the bigger picture. I think everyone's having virtual fatigue, so again, thank you for joining the webinar, because it's another webinar, and I've realized I say webinar instead of just webinar. So we're trying to avoid let's all try and avoid burnout. I'm loving the idea of drumming workshops, for example, so you can get that energy out, that frustration out on these drums. So I think that's a brilliant idea. Once we go back to face-to-face, and there are virtual drumming workshops available now as well, which is really cool. Same with walking tours. You can have virtual walking tours where you're actually walking and racking up the miles with your peers or colleagues or friends, and then you'll get together on a virtual basis at the end of it all, and of course that's something we can go back to soon as well, which I'm really looking forward to. Lots of resilience workshops are coming up now as well. I know people that are doing those as well, which is I think very well needed, and of course, you know, with well-being, looking after ourselves, then lots of things available there. But still having that confidence in ourselves and going outside of our comfort zones. I mean, personally, doing these webinars, I was really fearful doing them in the first one, and literally the day before the first one, I was like, why am I doing this? Oh my God, why am I doing this? So thank you for again supporting these, and it has just been so good communicating with everybody about what we're all doing and how we're working towards this as well. And when we are feeling frustrated and very grumpy about what's going on, you know, it's about how we control our response, you know, recognizing the fear, as it were, and absolutely congratulating ourselves on how far we've come. You know, whether we're people out here are still looking for a job, because this goes on to people that are going back to people that are furloughed or have been made redundant. At least, you know, things are starting to move, albeit very slowly. We've done so well to get this far, and it can only get better. I know we do say that a lot, but it's like, just take a moment to say, you know, we've done really well here already, and trying to push away those negative thoughts and distractions that go, what about this and what about this, and make us feel a bit more grumpy as well. And also, you know, looking at your inner circle in your, you know, with your family or your work, which one of those have been a positive influence over the last year. They're the ones that I'm going to be the first to make sure that I go and see, of course. And if people haven't been there for you, you know, perhaps they've been going through their own thing, or, you know, that this is where we look at, you know, who are my tribe now. Actually, I love the word tribe. And what's our end goal? You know, why are we doing what we're doing? Why are we in the job that we're doing, or the business? Remembering, you know, and that's going back to congratulating ourselves. We can all do this role. It's just about doing it slightly differently now, and who knows what will happen in 6 months, a year's time as well, and finding that peace, which will ensure our well-being is better there as well. So I'll just have a quick look at the chat, and a couple more bits we mentioned there. So somebody said a question to the venues. So if you can put an answer in the chat, that would be good. How can they vaccinate all their staff? How do they do that? Is there a pecking order? Good question. Somebody else has said, if an event has to cancel due to COVID, a full refund will be issued regardless of notice given for us. So that's really interesting. Yeah, and I think this is the difference. If somebody has, if it's an area that's got COVID, so therefore it's been closed, of course, we go back to that. Yeah, well, the government's shut that area down, that region down, or whatever, lockdown, and that's different. And I think it's more these cases if there's a trainer that has COVID, and so the trainer obviously can't do it, and that day cancels or day before, full cancellation will apply normally. So unless that, you know, that is all these speculations of it's down per property to make those judgment calls as well. And I know it depends on the client, it depends on how big the event is, if are they a regular client, they've got something in next week and the week after or whatever. So yeah, there's a lot to be considered, isn't there? And I think put that one again. Are you saying that only employ staff that are vaccinated? So there, somebody's got few questions there about vaccinating their staff. If anybody can answer that. Are you saying that you'll only employ staff that are vaccinated? Yeah, that's something that's is something people are questioning as well. So there's somebody else, Katie, thanks for put this for attendees as well. You've had groups in-house who have paid for the teams to be tested, and also the council have set up places for hospitality staff to go and get tested. Yeah, so tested, obviously, but a vaccination is kind of, I think, what people are talking about as well now. Waiting to hear from frontline staff, somebody else has said. Zach, you're saying there's a company called Signpost who can come on site and vaccinate, even bringing a mobile lab if required. Contact, Louise Hindley's involved in that. Oh, you mean tested, sorry, come and test people. Yes, and actually going back to when I was talking about people with children and things as well, if you've got children at school, you are able to get the whole family can get free tests as well. So for example, I've got a child 13 at secondary, the 10-year-old is at primary, and we're able to get free tests sent to the home, so that then we're keeping on top of that as well. So the girls themselves, the one at secondary school has to be tested twice a week. They're the guidelines, so not everybody has to do it. I say has to. The advice is all secondary children are tested twice a week. My eldest has literally gone into school this morning to be tested. She's negative, so that means she can go into school on Monday, and that's where that's going to be a staggered return for people next week. The youngest, because she's in primary school, they don't have to be tested, but we can, and this is what we're going to do, is get the home test so that then we can still make sure that we're all tested. So yeah, there is definitely lots of different ways that people can get tested, and as Zach says there, if you've got if an organizer has an event, they could get a company like Signpost, I hope I said that right, to come in and test everybody on that day, and away you go. So that finishes up, that rounds up the webinar. So what's going to happen next, because I was doing it initially October to March, just to keep connected, as I say, with everybody. It's massively grown, and I can't thank people enough for joining, for registering, and I love it even when people say, you know, I want to come, can you just send it to me afterwards? So that's great. I always get people to register, and then I just go through that list and send that out the next day. So this should come to you tomorrow. So going forward, anything I do put on social media. So I'm just going to put my details up there. Want to say happy International Women's Day on Monday. Don't forget, everybody. So my details are there. Do connect with me on social media, just because anything I do next, and as I have done with all of these, it's always been on social media. There has been discussion about a focus group. So some people I started mentioning this at the beginning, actually. So this would be really good to see what your thoughts are of taking this forward now. When I spoke to the corporates this morning, some of them definitely said, yes, we'd love to do, when I suggested doing a mixed focus group, perhaps either on Zoom, so you are seeing each other, or a webinar like this, and then if it's a Zoom, then numbers might be come into that as well. Some have asked me if this has been paid when they've registered, and no, this has always been free. That probably will change going forward, so it depends on what we're doing, and so yeah, this focus group thing is what people are saying that they would like to do to keep something going forward, where it's quite interactive and you can ask all these questions and answers to each other as well. So do let me know. I will send the follow-up to you always afterwards, most likely tomorrow, once it's, you know, I put it up on YouTube and share it with you tomorrow. So I just want to say thank you. Keep in touch. Do put stuff on. If you've taken any pictures, obviously do send them to me. Everything will be on social media as far as what's happening next anyway. So do let me know if you've got any thoughts about taking this forward. I know I've spoken to a couple of people in between these, and they're quite up for doing something else going forward. So people are saying thank you for coming. I'm going to stop sharing the screen here. Here we go. Big thank you for the support in the last year. Obviously we're all going to continue that going forward. I can't wait to see people properly, as I know we all can, and keep this ball rolling. So thank you so much. Thank you for all your thank you comments coming in now. Do email me afterwards if you can, schedule a call with me. There was a Calendly link on, it's on my also signature anyway, and you can schedule like half an hour, and that's just, I found that the best way and quickest way that we can get a time together and catch up. So I hope that wasn't too overwhelming. I know that was just me talking the whole time, and I massively appreciate it. I keep saying that because I honestly do. I'm going to end this now, so I won't see any chat things that come in once I say farewell, but as I said, do email me and keep in touch. Good luck, and I really hope to see you all soon. All right, take care.